If you enjoyed the channel and our video content and would like to support us, you can do this in a couple of ways. You can sign up to our Patreon site, which is a monthly subscription to one of our 4 tiers, each giving you something different from early access interviews up to exclusive unseen footage. There's also the option of a one-off donation via PayPal, which allows you the option to donate an amount of your choice. Both options really help to keep this channel going and to continue putting out regular content for you good folk. So please take a look at aircrewinterview.tv/donate, and I thank you in advance. Thank you and enjoy. So we now have the nose open, so can you tell us what it was like on your first flight sitting right there?
To be honest, I can't remember a huge amount about the first flight particularly, but it's a bit strange when you first sit in there, and then when the nose closes, it closes with a big clang, a bit like a cell door. Not that I've been in a cell, so I'm not, I've seen films of cell doors closing, but you kind of think, and it goes dark. And the little window you can see on the left-hand side there are known as day-night indicators. I'll talk about what they're actually for a bit later on, but essentially it's pretty much like that. There's not a lot of light in there once you close that door. And then the table sits on your knees and your nav bag sitting down the side of the seat. You are a bit constrained. And unlike all the other Canberras, you can't get up and walk around, and you can't go and have a chat to the pilot and tap him on the shoulder, because he climbs up his ladder, sits in his place, I sit in the nose, and that's it. You don't see each other again till you get out. It's a unique arrangement for the PR Canberra, for the PR9. And the reason why the canopy is offset, when you look up now at the canopy, it's only offset to the left-hand side because it was minimum change from all the other Canberras. And in all the other Canberras, you climb through a door on the right, and you then, as a pilot, move across to the left-hand side and sit under the left-hand side of the canopy. Well, once you decide you're not going to use that door anymore, and you move the canopy across to the left, then of course it looks offset. People always think it was done for clever tactical reasons, done for keep it as cheap as possible reasons. So when Shorts designed this in Northern Ireland, they were told a minimum change to be made to the aeroplane.
So we're going to have a detailed look later on, but can you tell us some about some of the systems for the nav and the cameras that were on the PR9 in your time?
So in my period, I arrived on the squadron in 1977. This particular airplane here, XH135, I flew that 15 times on the squadron amongst my 1,000 hours of PR Canberra flying. And so really we're talking there about that late 70s, early 80s period of fit for the airplane. When it went through one of its first transitions of kit in it, essentially in the front, you've got the front set of instruments on navigation, the left-hand side is all the camera controls, and the right-hand side is all the communications, in essence, in breaking it down. And so for you, your primary role obviously was to maintain the navigation system as accurate as you could, and then obviously with your map on your table, navigate from A to B. You're then using the cameras appropriate to the sortie. So when I was on the squadron in the late 70s, we had 2 primary roles. We had a tactical low-level role, and we had 3 cine cameras for that, F95 cine cameras, 1 in the port, 1 starboard and 1 in the nose, and there's a little round window you can see, and we'll look at that in a moment. And you run those at either 4 or 8 frames a second. And they're basically, we use those at 100 feet, 200 feet, that sort of height. And so if you're flying past a tank or a group of tanks or troops, that's what you use. You're flying past a bridge or anything else that's a tactical target, that's what you use for the photograph. We tended to put those targets down the left-hand side of the airplane only because the pilot has a better view down the left. So we tend to use the port F95 more than any of the other 2 because it gave him a better view as you pass the target. If we got the target in the right position for the camera, and you ideally want the target, say it's a bridge, so a lateral bridge, you want that bridge 1/3 of the way up the frame in the film. If he gets it 1/3 of the way up the frame, then I will see it in my window. So as we flash past the target, I look at the target, he looks at the target, and I write down a visual report on what I've seen, then I ask him what he saw.
Right.
So when we're tasked for that target, we'll be told if there are any key elements of information. So against a bridge, they might say, we really want to know what the structure of the bridge is, so we need to do weapon to target matching. So if you want the weapon to go bang effectively and choose the right weapon, you need to know the structure of the target. So they might say the primary purpose here is structure. They might say, we want to know for any alternate crossings. So if we drop this bridge, can they get across the river in some other way within a mile or 2? So depending on what the key tactical data requirement is, will be what we'll actually write down. And you have to learn what things look like. So, electronics is another thing. So you go flashing past a mast, what kind of antenna are on there? What direction do they face? Are they weather covered? How many are there? And you're doing all this in 5-10 seconds. You flash past a target and write it down. And you do lots of training on the ground. Recce squadrons had a very intensive ground training system. So you learn how to identify these things very, very quickly. So you could write it down. And you tended to fly with the same pilot all the time, which meant you could share the information more readily. You understood how the other person worked. Constituted crews was still the case on Tornado for me as well in my day. So probably 80% of my trips in this were flown with the same constituted pilot in that period. I changed pilots 3 times in my 5 years, but same pilot. So if we go past a bridge, then we will agree that he will look at certain parts of it and I will look at other parts of it. That way, we shouldn't miss anything. A guy called Mike Rondo, who's a well-known aviation artist, was one of our pilots, and I flew with Mike. And Mike would actually draw a picture of the target as well. So when you landed at the end of the sortie, you normally did 5 or 6 of these targets in a trip. When you landed, the film was taken away, and I'll show you a camera magazine in a moment. The film was taken away and developed. You then go to talk with the PIs, the photo interpreters, and before you can look at the target, they ask you for your visual report form, so they can compare what you said about it to what the film actually shows. So every time you fly, you're being evaluated. Mike would hand in a drawing of the target as well, being an artist. His drawing was normally brilliant. And so one thing I really liked about the recce role was it wasn't pretending you dropped bombs on something. You actually came back with the result or not. So it's continually proving you can actually do the role. Yep. And that's the tactical role. Of course, flashing around at a couple hundred feet is actually quite good fun as well.